Every time around this year, we come to spend time gathering around with our friends, mutuals, family, and have a chance to reminisce the past year with them. It's also a time where we also see a lot of incarnations of icons such as Santa Claus, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, and so forth. I mean, sure, they all respectfully represent the joy of Christmas, but when it comes to Christmas icons, one that I'm sure I will never get sick of would be the Grinch. The Grinch is an icon that always stands out amongst the rest of the Christmas icons because he pretty much embodies what I and a lot of people tend to view about the holiday season. So I want to look at and understand why a big, hairy, dirty old Grinch, who ideally should be someone that goes against everything that is Christmas, is the true icon around this time of year. Everyone loves this mean, old, nasty, termite-infested teethed Grinch, and he has been a true staple to this holiday for a long time, despite being a symbol of someone who loathes everything about Christmas. Why is he so unique to a lot of people around this time of year? What makes him so relatable?
One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they pound, raise in the sound, oh, how they play, there in the tent. Hear me the rain, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding, ding, merry, merry Christmas. Ding, ding, merry, merry Christmas. On this and on without end, their joyful tone to every home.
We should understand what Christmas is seen as to a lot of people in the modern age. Seeing how Christmas is a highly valuable source for the economy every year, it's no surprise that the Christmas season is seen as an excuse for advertisers to sell the holiday as an extravagant and wonderful time. Evidently, it's subconsciously encouraging people to put up decorations and buying toys for children. Christmas is undoubtedly a commercially viable period, and it's not difficult to see that Christmas is at the forefront of consumerism. And it's also the reason why people can criticize Christmas for selling out. Now with that said, Dr. Seuss's take on the subject of commercialization has been surrounded with the Grinch even from the character's origins. One of Dr. Seuss's earliest stories was The Hubbub and the Grinch. It was first published in Redbook magazine, where we see the Grinch tricking another character called Hubbub into buying a piece of string, which the Grinch claims to be worth more than the sun. This little story, of course, is an allegory for pretty much any advertisement or infomercial we see, even basing itself upon Dr. Seuss's own experiences with marketing. A little subtle play on how advertisers can use manipulative tactics to easily sucker someone in from buying something, which turns out at the end of the day is completely worthless. Eventually, Dr. Seuss then went on to explore the concept of materialism and commercialism with How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And what better subject to tackle for commercialism than Christmas? The story on How the Grinch Stole Christmas is based on different perceptions of this holiday. How Christmas is seen through someone relishing in the extravagancy and consumeristic lifestyle, and someone who is deeply opposed to the idea of that. The Dr. Seuss story sets up the Grinch seeing the citizens of Whoville celebrating this wonderful time of year by setting up the Christmas tree, decorating the house and the streets, and the children playing with their toys. All of this sets up the dissatisfaction and irritation from the title character. Even the thought of the Whoville's enjoyment and holiday anticipation really tickles the Grinch's nerves. And this is where the cynicism of the Grinch comes from. I sort of see the Grinch embodied as someone who completely rejects the notion of consumerism. Someone who finds it annoying that a holiday is predominantly filled with the elements of materialism and trading and all that jazz. All these elements are obviously presented in the form of ornaments, toys, lights, and all the food that the Who set up for themselves to enjoy prior to the big day. This form of materialism is so dominated that the Grinch oversees what the holiday is arguably all about, and this act is reflective on most adults and how we experience things like materialism and consumerism, and how we can be so critical of it at times. As we get older and more mature, we grow to become more sinister of not only ourselves, but the world around us. We start to familiarize ourselves with the consumerism ethics in big businesses using special occasions as a means to bring up a profit. Now in contrast, think about a time when you were a kid. Your perspective on Christmas was pretty much nothing else other than awesome. You were looking forward to that new PlayStation you were waiting for months, and there was nothing like the feeling you had when you wake up on Christmas morning, rushing over to the Christmas tree and opening up presents and playing with the toys that you've got. Basically, as a kid, Christmas meant the world to you. When you grow older, you start to lose interest in Christmas. You grow up and start to get the real glimpse of the world around you, and you get reality slapped in your face. And this is where you develop that sense of cynicism. Most people by this age are accustomed with the joyfulness of Christmas after years of being bombarded with this abundancy of excitement from the marketing and festive community activities that are held around December. It comes a point in our lives where it's just too much and we all grow getting tired of it. We come to a stage where we're not as enthusiastic of something as we used to be. It's now just insignificant things that we don't pay attention to. It could be because most of these things we feel are too contrived and forceful for us to take. All of the Christmas specials that show up on TV, the marketing campaigns that exploit the holiday rather than celebrating it. How many of you wanted to pull your eyes out every time when you stumble into your local supermarket listening to the speakers play Mariah Carey on repeat? That's the cynicism that most adults experience around Christmas time, in which is what's present in the Grinch character. The Grinch represents the cynicism in all of us. And this cynicism, as well as other similar traits such as dissatisfaction, frustration, contentment, isolates the Grinch from the rest of the citizens of Whoville. The Who's Christmas optimism is what keeps the Grinch shut in from the rest of society, keeping him on top of Mount Crumpet away from the rest of Whoville. The Grinch is an outcast who is sick and tired of putting up with the festivities that the Who's partake in. It annoys him to the point where he wants to put an end to it once and for all. And as he demeaningly smiles, he comes up with a cunning plan to quote-unquote steal Christmas. But the Who's are just as vital to the story as is the Grinch. The optimism that is displayed by the Who's are those that relish and embrace in the festivities and joy that Christmas supposedly brings to them. Dr. Seuss wanted to present the environment that the Who's live in as something that's excessive and quirky, while still keeping the spirit alive within the citizens of Whoville. This extensive amount of Christmas cheer from Whoville, you can also kind of argue is what shows the perception of how kids see Christmas. Taking a look at how other people celebrate Christmas also makes me reminisce those days fondly as an adult. As kids, we thought that only gifts from our loved ones were a significant part on Christmas Day and nothing else. Just like everyone, we would always have toys underneath the Christmas tree. We would buy Christmas lights, then hang them up and turn them all on, while witnessing everyone else in my neighborhood having their lights beaming up and flashing. Nowadays, as an adult, my parents have accepted the maturity that I have developed in recent years, and it's a big factor as to why we haven't really been celebrating Christmas to that extent as we used to all those years ago. All this glamour and pleasures of the holidays that families would relish in, it would sometimes make people forget the true values and ethics of what Christmas was meant to be. Of course, this story attempts to reach that message of not coming to the conclusion that Christmas doesn't base itself on just materialism, so it's great that stories like The Grinch can remind kids of this. The Who's represent the kids' point of view of Christmas, and the Grinch is the embodiment of someone who just doesn't want to celebrate it to the extent of someone who loves Christmas. The optimism around the Who's reminds us of our most cherished times around Christmas. The cynicism of the Grinch and the optimism of the Who's is what makes the story of how the Grinch stole Christmas connect with a lot of people of all ages. Now, as we all know at the end of the story, as the Grinch anticipates the Who's dismay and sadness when they all see their things gone after the Grinch has taken them, instead, the Who's gather around at the centre of Whoville and start sinning, where the heart of the story plays out in which Christmas is something that can't be taken away. They still have value in themselves and each other, making the Grinch realise the true essence of Christmas and coming to the realisation of his errors. So he comes back down to Whoville to give everything back. In addition, he's no longer shut in from the rest of the functioning society, but rather the Who's forgive him for his errors and accepts his presence, inviting him to the feast and letting him carve the roast beast, regardless of his differences to the rest of Whoville. The Grinch ultimately learns that not having interest in certain things doesn't mean that he can take it away from others that enjoy it. It shows that despite how cynical and less joyful we can all be around this time of year, the Grinch reminds us that we can still appreciate Christmas for what it is, even as grown-ups. We might be at the stage where we don't want to celebrate it, but that doesn't mean you can take that away from everyone else that wants to celebrate it. This all reflects on how at the end of the day, anyone who is pretty contemptuous when it comes to Christmas time, and how everyone loves to force us into celebrating it, we can still acknowledge it as a time to appreciate what our peers and family have gave to us. It's our time of year to give back to those who have nurtured us and have cherished us to be the person we are. For me, I'm so lucky and grateful for the support, provision, and love that they gave to me and for everyone else in my family during my childhood. It's something I cannot appreciate enough, and Christmas is just one of many occasions where we just need to take the time out of our busy lives to spend time with our loved ones and allowing to look out for each other. And that feeling of being appreciated does not go unwarranted. And that is why I see the Grinch being so special. Thanks for watching.